This episode of Fresh and Buds is brought to you by Kano's accounting firm. It is getting towards the end of the year, folks. And that is when you got to start thinking about taxes. And guess what? Kano's accounting firm is the number one place to get your taxes done in the region of Wraith. It is an excellent service. They do great. They typically are only off by one, let's be honest, and that's okay. You know, most of the time they get it, but other times just off a little bit. But hey, who's checking, really? Hey, Kano's accounting firm, thank you for supporting the show. I love your motto, which is either you choose us or the other guys, which is a little clever. I like that. So, well, speaking of the show, we got a great one for you, and we're gonna do it right now.
Fresh and
all right, welcome back, folks, to yet another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds. And today we have a great episode. We are with Dex Dex is obviously embodies Brute, both physically and, cosplay, playing the game, and just doing really well, and really happy to have a somewhat local bud on here, Pennsylvania, the neighboring state to New Jersey, the official state of Fresh and Buds. But we got a great show for you all. Before we get to Dex, I just want to shout out a few things. A great way to support the show is to check out the YouTube, like, comment, subscribe there. Hopefully some really cool stuff coming down the pipes with heavy hitters on that YouTube. Check out the Twitter, everything else, the Buds Discord, which is one of the best places to hang out in the game. And those links are all in the Linktree below. And stick around towards the end. We might get to our dear friend Charmer for just a small little word at the end of the show. Now, Dex, how are you, my friend?
I am doing great. You know me, I love attention, so I'm glad to be here. I'm very excited to talk Brute things with the New Jersey Brute himself.
Yeah, I've been called that well before I even played Flesh and Blood. It's a wonderful title to have. But I'm really happy that you're here. I remember first seeing your cosplay, and I was like, I gotta get Dex on. And then
hell yeah,
yeah, and I was just like, there's obviously, just embodies the whole idea of Brute is to have fun, and when I see you, you're having fun. So before we get to Brute talk, though, before we get to the Savage Lands as it is, let's get to know you, the person, the Dex. When did trading card games come into your life?
So I'd say there's two times. The first time was for trading card games in general. It was Magic the Gathering. I started playing in, I want to say, 2011. So that was I believe it was my junior year of college that I started playing. I just roped a whole bunch of friends into playing. I was like, I want to try something new. Let's play Magic the Gathering. And then I got them all addicted to Cardboard Crack, right? So and then we played that for a whole bunch. And then the second time for Flesh and Blood, it was right before the pandemic. I was again looking for like a new game to play. And Magic was getting a little stale for me. I wasn't enjoying the competitive aspect of the game quite as much as I would have liked. So I was looking for other games, and Flesh and Blood, I don't remember exactly where I saw this, but it was on YouTube somewhere, and there was like an exhibition match between Bravo and Rhinar, and it was Fatigue, Drone of Brutality, Rhinar, and I was like, I'm in love. I love this game. This game looks so cool. The cadence of it seems sweet. Played it all through the pandemic, so I'd say like that's the second awakening to trading card games. But I don't know if you remember, but you were my first in-person match ever.
I do vaguely remember. It was the Owl Central Games, right? Out in Millersville?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't remember how that game ended, and I was probably playing Leviah at the time.
No, you were playing Rhinar.
Oh, I did bring Rhinar to that event. Yes, I did. And I I don't know if I did well with Rhinar
You
that.
did. I don't know if you did well at the 1K, but I know I came afterwards because I wasn't able to make it for the 1K itself. But we played a game, and you
Yes.
showed me that you could gambler's gloves somebody else's real.
Oh,
I was like, that's pretty neat.
yeah, yeah. I don't think I did well in the tournament, but I was hanging out after. Yes, and the folks from Steelblade Showtime, I think, were cracking boxes, and I think Gary might have opened a Fabled at the time, which of course he did. Yeah, but no, wow. Remember, it feels like forever. This game's been going on, even though it hasn't been that long, and it's just so cool. But Dex, I gotta know, Flesh and Blood. You certainly have a knack for the brute life. I mean, even I remember, you said that you're rather new, and you really impressed me with how you were playing, even, or not rather new, but like first in-person game. And I was like, oh, wow, it was pretty cool to experience. And here we are a few years later, you top eight the Battle Hardened of Pittsburgh. How much preparation did you put into the Pittsburgh tournament?
First of all, it wasn't a few years later. That was this February.
Oh my God! Was it this February? Okay, all right.
This February.
See, that's
Yeah.
I don't know how time works. Obviously, all right. It was a year later, less than a year later.
Less than a year later.
That's pretty cool.
No, so I started playing Flesh and Blood with WTR, but it was just like me and my husband. We were cracking packs, playing, and then the pandemic lifted. We went back to playing Magic. And then it was this year in February that I was like, wait a second. I really loved that Flesh and Blood game. Let me just get way more invested and do Rhinar cosplay, and then also try to be like an incredibly good pro player. So that was all what I decided in January of this year, and then showed up at Twin Armory in February, and that was pretty good. And the rest is history. What was your question again? I feel
how much preparation did you put in
Oh.
to getting prepared for the Battle Hard in Pittsburgh? Because obviously we know you're a Rhinar main, and the thing about this game is we have a lot of people who are just mains with like heroes.
Right.
It's like a lot like fighting games, as Gorganian Tome kind of pointed out in his video essay, and so sometimes, like even I don't get to prepare a lot for a bigger tournament. I just show up with either Riptide or Leviah because that's what I know best. So I was wondering, was that the case for Battle Hard in Pittsburgh, or were you really, putting in the hours for Rhinar?
I would say it's been a slow buildup over the course of the year. So with Lexi LLing, we were really returning to a meta where I expected Fi and Katsu to be top dogs, similar to how they were before Outsiders. The only changes really since then were that Leviah got a bunch of new cards and that she broke into the meta for a short bit. And then Azalea as well, right when Outsiders came out, Azalea was like really top tier. So I was expecting Azalea to come back with a resurgence of Azalea, and I was expecting a lot of Fi to return because people love fast decks that are able to just take people to 40 from 40 to 0 very quickly. So I would say it was like a combination of preparation in terms of I was just practicing on Talishar. I'm a solo act, so I don't have like team members to play against or anything. It was just going to armories, gathering experience over the year, and just remembering what decks were like before the Lexi meta, and that helped a lot.
Yeah, and you certainly brought a version of Rhinar that was really tuned for the meta that or at least you expected, right? I remember watching a couple of the matches. I was like, wow, it's like this is the most control Rhinar I've seen in a long time. Do you enjoy the control Rhinar more so than your traditional Blood Rush Bellow kind of balls to the wall aggro deck?
I would say yes, if only for the fact that the balls to the walls aggro deck really doesn't have a block option.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if I drew Wild Rides and Pulpings in the same hand, it's very difficult to clear that hand unless I kept the whole four. So if my opponent decides to have a power turn or has Artivore or Three of a Kind in their arsenal and they go off, I can't really stuff some of that damage and then return my own Pulping or my own Wild Ride. It's really just I take the whole damage and then I go Wild Ride into Club or Pulping into Claw or something like that. it feels like there's less flexibility when I'm running those cards. Not to say that they're bad, because I
Mhm.
have run the cheetah build, and it is fun, but I feel like I am more at the mercy of my deck than if I am playing a mid-range style, which can pivot back and forth between aggression and control.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. Yeah, I think flexibility is oftentimes the most underrated kind of factor in a card game in general, not just Flesh and Blood. And it's reason things like Enlightened Strike are so good, and decks like Katsu that can be either turtle or full on aggro, and Rhinar in your case where you can take the step back and block and do all these really cool defense reactions and make it really difficult for their opponent, but especially when they were expecting to just get intimidated out and claw, 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 boom, boom, boom. So it's pretty interesting. Now, before we get to more brute talk, well, I guess this is somewhat of brute talk. Your cosplay,
Inevitable when we're talking with you.
yeah, which obviously, oh man, I mean, so now I don't even know what time means. When did the cosplay make its first? Was that at Baltimore?
Yes, you got it
Okay.
right. It was Pro Tour Baltimore that I made that cosplay.
Yeah. So what was you said that when you decided to get back into the game, you wanted to do cosplay of Rhinar.
Yeah.
So that was, you just knew that and you just wanted to go for it. What was the thought process there?
I have a tendency to hyper focus on the things I'm enjoying in the moment. So if whatever I'm doing, I want to be the best at it, or at least recognized for it. So at the time, I was relatively new to competitive Flesh and Blood. I was just playing Kitchen Table before that, and I don't like not succeeding, if you know what I mean. So like even after third place Battle Hardened Pittsburgh, I was still like, oh, I didn't win. But acknowledging that I did well, right? I did great.
Hmm.
Um, but there's always a side of me that wants to hedge. So if I'm not doing well I don't want to put all my eggs into I want to do well at this tournament, and that's going to be what determines if I'm having fun or not. And thankfully, Reinhardt is just an insanely fun deck to play. And even if if I went like 0-10 at a tournament, I would still be having a great time with Reinhardt. But I do like winning and I do like competing. So it was just, since I liked Reinhardt aesthetically quite a lot and decided to make him my personality for the year and probably beyond at this point, it felt correct to grow to Pro Tour Baltimore. And since I wasn't playing in the main event, I was like, okay, I'll just go do the calling side event and I'll join the cosplay contest, meet some new friends, have some fun. And it ended up working out great.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. I remember when I saw it, I was like, "Oh my god, that's like so cool!" And like, I we've seen some Rhinar cosplays in the past. They've all been great, but there's something about like the fact that you didn't even bother. Like, like I'm not painting myself green. I can be Rhinar without painting myself green, which is like I think a true testament to how well the rest of the cosplay worked, and also the idea of what brute is in general is that no, we're just like savages. That's what we like to be, and just kind of be like that. So it was awesome, and obviously did well with it, and it shows its fangs here and there, continuing down the line. But I gotta ask, what, because talking to you, you are very sweet. You're very nice and reserved and just obviously really cool. Not to say that brute players aren't cool. I'm a brute player. People talk to me. I'm a little bit more rougher around the edges, I guess would be the
Hmm.
words. What drew you to brute? Because you are maybe not breaking the mold, but maybe not what a lot of people would expect a brute beer player to be like.
I do like subverting expectations, and that is part of why I really liked the Tank Reinhardt deck that I built. It When I sat down, it was very nice to see people go, "Oh, you are much more defensive than I thought you'd be," and catching people off guard really, really like clinched some games for me. Just because they weren't expecting 10D reacts, right? If they're like, if you're at 10 and someone goes and Bravo dominates or Azalea dominates, they're expecting you to die. And if you have more D-reacts to live and then crack back with a strong Blood Rush Bellow, all of a sudden you're in the clear. You're doing great. So I've always loved subverting expectations of what decks were supposed to do, and I think I had a lot of help from that with that concept from Rose, who you know as well, who lives in the area, and she's incredible deck builder. And yeah, it's just like thinking about cards in ways that hopefully other people haven't been thinking about cards. A lot of people in the Flesh and Blood meta, and especially on Flesh and Blood Twitter, love to kind of fixate on what's in the meta and how it's unbeatable, but there's so many cards, so many permutations of decks that are out there that I feel like there's not enough Flesh and Blood brewers for the meta to be solved at any particular point in time. Yes, it's probably solved for like professional play. Sorry, this is I'm rambling, but
No.
functionally I think it's hard for a meta to be solved when there's not the same number of people as like who are playing Magic the Gathering are playing, and we have like such a huge card pool and huge hero selection. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And this kind of came up with Dash IO, right? It was a point of conversation when it burst onto the scene at the Calling Melbourne. And you're right that we are just not brewing as much as a community as we think we are, right? And I think that there's going to be more of that going forward as the game continues to grow and the card pool gets bigger, because eventually it's going to get to a point where you can't just be like, oh, this is the best deck, right? And you know, it has the best matchup spread, because eventually you're going to have to say, well, if that's the case, everybody's playing it, I need to figure out the perfect answer for that, solve the riddle in a way so that it could kind of break the mold of the meta and other people can kind of come in, and all of a sudden it totally gets like leveled out in a way. But so I do have one more question before we get to the fresh faves here. I didn't put in the notes, but I just remembered, and you brought it up before. We are recording before the Realm Rumble and Brawl.
Yes.
And it is the first tournament where Icelander is not legal. Now, last week we had Dan Rakowski on. We talked a lot about what it meant for that. I haven't recorded that episode yet, but I'm sure we had some great insights. What do you think, you know, looking back, this would be kind of a nice little check for us. What would you have expected at the Realm Rumble, even though it's already done? And we already technically know, but for the people listening, you get a little special treat. It's like, oh, did we guess correctly?
Oh, I'm actually really curious. So when they announced this new LL system, I trust LSS because obviously I'm not a game developer. I I wouldn't know the first thing to do about like the LL board and how to improve things. But one of my main concerns with the LL system was like something exactly like this, right? Battle Hardened Wallonia happened, and then a whole bunch of people who were probably planning on taking Icelander to the Realm games all of a sudden don't have that deck, one. And then two, everyone else who is preparing for a metagame with Icelander now can shift their deck in such a way that they don't have to prepare for her anymore. And it's like this new fresh meta all of a sudden for a very big premier tournament. So I'm very curious to see how that shakes out, first of all. And then second, with Icelander being out of the meta, I would expect a lot of redline. So let's say Fies, Katsu, perhaps like Redline Azuri makes a resurgence. Dromize are already running like 0 blues and not being particularly punished for it. So I would expect to see more of that. And then in counter to those things, I would expect more decks that can cover up relatively good breakpoints. I'm still expecting Azalea to do very well. I feel like she hasn't gotten her time in the sun since the Lexi ban, and I think she's a very good deck that a lot of more people should be afraid of. So.
Yeah, I think Azalea is a great point to bring up because it's still so powerful in those on hits, and like nobody's blocking, you know? So if you can kind of control the game with these huge arrows and on hits, Fi can't really do much about that, right? Or I mean, Katsu maybe, but dominate can only go so far. Now, do you obviously we know Rhinar won the whole tournament, right? How many Rhinars really smashed this past weekend, you think?
I want to say this is tough because there's where is the Realm Games taking? I unfortunately can't make it to the Realm Games. I'm going to PAX Unplugged this year, but where is the Realm Games taking place?
Columbus, Ohio.
That's reasonably close to our Brute land.
Yeah, it is. Got some Pittsburgh Brutes, Central PA Brutes. They could all be traveling out there.
I think Jeffo is going, and I think he said he was going to be on Brute. So I'm going to bet on him, and I'm going to say at least, let's say 2 Brutes doing well. I'm hoping 1 top 8s.
That is, you were so correct. That was unbelievable. Or you weren't. Let us know in the comments. But yeah, I will not be playing in the 20K, but I think I'm going to play the Brawl. I'll be bringing Riptide actually. So I think it's Riptide's time. I just want to trigger traps on Fi all day. So very exciting. Now, the Fresh Faves is where I'm going to ask you a few of your favorite cards in the game. I think we're going to know a few of the answers to this right off the bat, but are you ready, Dex?
I am super ready to answer your questions about my favorite fresh things.
First, who is your favorite hero?
Rhinar Reckless Rampage. No, it's not close.
That is totally unexpected. I did not see that coming. What is your favorite weapon?
Okay, you know what? I think it's unfair for me. It's just gonna be Brute cards the whole time.
That's okay.
So I'll give you a Brute card, and I'll tell you a second weapon that I think is also pretty dope.
Okay.
Okay, so it'll be Romping Club. I think that's my favorite Brute weapon. I'm always on the claws, but Romping Club has a special place in my heart. It's so fair and such good value. 2 for 4, 2 for 5, incredible.
Yes.
But I love Pistol.
Oh,
Pistol is so cool.
Yeah. Pistols, those decks can do some crazy stuff with such a small little weapon. It almost makes me upset. What's your favorite equipment?
Scowling Flesh Bag, also not close.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Flesh Bag is awesome.
I think that card alone, upped Rhinar's viability, a ton. It's such good value. It's, 1 helmet for, 6, 8, 10 points of value. Oh, my goodness. Delicious.
Oh, so good. I mean, as a Levi player, it was awesome because I was 2 carrying husks? Seems good to me.
Yes, please.
Now, what is your favorite run-of-the-mill card, your non-attack action, instant, cards you put in your deck? Which of the Brute cards is it going to be?
Which of the Brute cards? You're so right, though. It's probably still Reckless Wing. Let me give that some thought. Probably still Reckless Wing. Yeah, no, that's the one. It's either that or Barraging Beatdown.
I mean,
I love both of what those cards can do.
Yeah, I mean, Barraging Beatdown is such a staple, and Reckless Swing. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people love it. I think it is one of the. This might be some real hyperbole right here, but I think it is the best designed card in the game. Not in the game, maybe in the brute, in the brute class, maybe. But just because everybody knows that brute sometimes has a tough time closing out the game when you're at a stalemate, right?
Yep.
And Reckless Swing is the fix to that, and it does exactly that. You don't want multiples in your hand, and you just want one, and you want it at a very specific time, and I think that makes it a home run. So thank you, LSS, for that beautiful card.
Thank you for that card from 5 years ago. You really peaked. You haven't done anything as good since, apparently, according to Tommy Fred.
some people do agree with that. Not me. I Swing Big's also great, and Scowling Fleshbag. I mean, yeah, keep giving us really cool stuff. And Slithering Shadow Pete, most cool card.
Yes. Oh,
And
sweet card.
Scariest to look at. Now, let's talk about Brute a little bit more extensively here, because we're getting our first non-supplemental Brute set since Monarch. We're going to be able to draft it. We're going to get some new heroes, hopefully. You know, people keep memeing me saying, oh, it's just Rhinar and KO reprinted. I will lose my mind if that's the case. And I think it's also going to bring about a new take on the Brute design, right? Because right now, Rhinar is very intimidate, discard, and then some kind of control aspects as well.
Right.
But I've always said that intimidate has kind of put Rhinar in a box where you can't really support Rhinar too much, because intimidate can be such a very unfun mechanic. So we have to see it taken in a new way in heavy hitters, I would assume. Now, do you think there's anything that Rhinar needs from heavy hitters that, you know, could potentially be there without kind of printing intimidate or something like that onto a card?
So I think I've become kind of not famous for saying this, but like I think people generally know my opinion that I don't think Reiner actually needs anything at the moment. I think he's doing great, and has been doing great since last year. Like if the Scouting Fleshbag was a welcome addition, but if they literally printed no Brute cards, I mean, okay, hold on, I'm not gonna say this so that LSS can hear and then never print me Brute cards again. But if they didn't print any Brute cards between like now and like last November, I would still be fine. I would still be on the deck. I would still be playing the game, and that's partly because I'm a one trick, but also because I feel like Reiner has a reasonable chance of winning even without all the tools he's been getting. What I feel like Rhinar would want from heavy hitters is more go again. And I think we're seeing some of that already with those agility tokens. I feel like there is the club build, I feel like could use some help in the sense that I would love a club build that can pivot more easily than the current cheetah build, because it's cheetah club or like kind of a tanky claws build or a aggressive claws build currently, or like Rhinar's three main archetypes. What I would love to see is more of that go again, which it seems like we're already getting. I would love to see more on discard effects, kind of like Skullcrack, Massacre, what's the other ones? Beast Within. So more cards that do things when they are discarded. So that's a way of like souping up the Intimidate without overpowering the Intimidate per se, or giving him more. Since again, as you mentioned, Intimidate can be a relatively unfun mechanic if a Rhinar becomes an oppressive part of the metagame. And I would love to see something that increases Rhinar or Brute's intellect in general. So not necessarily like similar to how like Dash.io can play cards from the top of her deck, or Chain could play cards from Banish, or cards could be banished from Soul for Prism, that kind of thing. I would love for something like a expendable limbs style of effect that Levia has with Rhinar, where you can block with a card. If you discarded this card, you can block with it this turn, or something like that. That could be very interesting to me.
Yeah, I think some extra disc, like I love, like Skullcrack is such a simple but really really effective design. I think, and more of that would be awesome as well. Now, I don't know. So based on, I'm just like taking a look right now. Based on the Brute cards we've seen so far, we've seen Test of Agility, which is a Brute Warrior block. So we're getting block cards.
Yeah.
This one's kind of neat. Blocks for 4 when it defends. Clash with attacking hero. The winner creates an agility token, which is I guess a fixed quicken token here, where it just pops at the beginning of turn. Clashing heroes reveal the top card of their deck. The hero that reveals the card with the greatest attack wins. So a Brute definitely has a very strong chance of actually hitting that agility token with Test of Agility. And this is the kind of, I think Clash is a great way to kind of have a variance kind of effect that isn't draw discard like we've seen a lot with Brute. And what else do we see? Runner, which just cares if it has go again. It's a 2 for 6. What? A 2 for 6 blocks 3?
A 2 for 6.
At red? Never heard
At
of
red?
this.
Damn.
So when this attacks, if it had or has go again, create an agility token so you can do another one and kind of go off a little bit. That's a Brute Warrior action as well. And then we saw Talk a Big Game, which is the Brute Guardian card, which is a blue, 0 cost, blocks 3.
Yep.
Don't hate that. Choose a number the next time you deal that much or more damage to a hero this turn. Create that many might tokens, which are the ones that kind of give a +1. Now, of those 3 cards, which are really ones that you're excited about for Constructed?
Talk a Big Game already seems very good to me. Rhinar's blues are not. I wouldn't say they're amazing, but the moment it's very interesting because you don't want to dilute your blue pool so much that you just don't have any way of intimidating anymore from your blues. So like, I will never be cutting the barraging beatdowns or I need to keep some of the high rollers, some amount of like clearing bellow, one of the two, just to make sure like in the end game, like you said, like you mentioned earlier, Rhinar has a very hard time closing out games with 2 for 6s. So being able to push through damage with intimidate in the late game with your pitched blues is very good. What I think Talk About Game does is that it allows Rhinar to get an on-hit, which is very exciting to me. If you keep this card and you just say 4 and then you play a swing big, all of a sudden that means your opponent has to give you 2 cards, otherwise you get an above rate attack on the following turn, which is very cool. And then if you say 5, it's functionally like 5 is also pretty good. Presumably that means 1D react could save you, but 5 means that either that's 1D react or 2 cards again, which is very nice for Talk a Big Game. I am really excited for that Clash mechanic, as you said, as you mentioned. I think it feels very Brute favored, not just because that we're more likely to have 6s in our hands, but some of the effects feel like they don't matter quite as much for our opponents, right? So if a Bravo is swinging at me, and I am, or someone is swinging at me, and I am blocking with the card that the Clash 4, and then you flip up the top card and you get a might token. Like if their turn is over, that might token is not super gonna matter to me. Instead, I get to see like the top card of their deck, and I know what's coming next potentially, which is pretty cool. Even if I end up losing like the card flip.
Yeah. So this is the test of agility. That one makes it agility. I imagine we'll get one for might and whatever the other token is. Maybe a gold
Vigor?
one.
Vigor.
Oh, Vigor. Yes. So, yeah, it does seem very favored for Brute because, well, more often than not, we're gonna win that if we hit the attack, and then even in the, giving agility to Guardian can sometimes bite you. I mean, you see it sometimes when like they block out a swing big, right? And then they wait a turn and then they go crush attack. But
yeah,
you just gotta hope that it doesn't happen. But agility at least fixes that, right? In a way, because it pops, and that's nice. So yeah, it's very interesting. Like, Talk a Big Game is a card that I'm looking at here for especially Rhinar, right? Can really use that towards the end of the game or not even, I guess at any point in the game, you arsenal that, maybe you intimidate a bunch of stuff, and then you play Talk a Big Game, and then you're going to get it as well, right?
Right.
You know exactly how much, like, if they have one card left, you name whatever, your attack is -3, which is pretty cool. So if we see more of that, that would be really neat. Although, it's kind of interesting. The Runner is the one I'm most interested about because it seems like it should be able to get go again a lot, right? If it has it printed on the card, when this taxi has go, if it has go again, create an agility token.
Right.
Which you mentioned, we need more go again. Right? Yeah. Go again that blocks. So we're looking at Runner. It blocks. It needs to get go again.
Yeah.
But if it's easy, and maybe those blocks, the block cards are the key there. Now, Do you dabble much in Levia, Dex?
I do not. I have there's a as you mentioned Central PA brutes. There's a ton of us, so they do have Levia decks that I've considered borrowing for one for an armory, but I have not played a lot of Levia. I've played against a lot of Levia.
Yeah. Well, I would say probably you're better off. We tend to hate ourselves and after killing ourselves 10 times during a single tournament, but I don't know if any of this is good for Levia. I think it remains to be seen. Maybe run a runner, depending on how. Obviously Levia uses Art of War more, so you can create the agility token pretty easily for runner there. Now we haven't seen any. What was that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, when I think of Levia, I think a lot of like graveyard filling. So if we get more of those discard mechanics, I feel like those would be the cards that are like more beneficial for Levia.
Yeah. As long as they block, right? That's all we care about, because there are times when we have a handful of no blocks and we decide to go second and we just take a bunch of damage and then can't play stuff.
No,
it's just great. Stay with Rhinar. Don't come over here. So we haven't seen any mention in these like 3 cards, right? And maybe by the time this is out, we may see more cards, but I highly doubt it. We don't see anything really mentioning 6 power, right? That's what Rhinar cares about. If you discard a card with 6 power, Levia cares about banishing a card with 6 power. We haven't seen anything with 6 power matters other than there's 1 6 power attack, right?
Right.
What do you expect to be the spin this time? It's obviously going to be printed on a hero. What is the 6 power matters thing for heavy hitters? This is all speculation. This is shooting a 3-pointer from full court.
Well, for one thing, something I would love to see is like fewer generics being played in decks in general. So obviously there's like some classics like CNC and E-Strike, but I would love for the classes that are playing E-Strike and CNC to have a souped up better version for their class. So even if it's like a little bit more limiting than what E-Strike can currently do, because that card is literally busted. But for the discarding and for 6s, something I was talking to Nathan of Savage Land News about is I would love, and this is not going to happen in this set because the concept was a Draconic Brute, but I would love a class that says whenever a hero card with text that says whenever you discard a 6, lose a life. And then it would be so sick if he had a weapon of some variety, or perhaps this was also part of his hero text and it would be a nightmare balancing this, but for each time you lost life this turn, your weapon gets +1 power or something like that, or create a might token or something. So like this concept of like a brute who's like taking a whole bunch of damage to like dish it back out. I think that would be really neat.
That would be neat. I mean, it sounds like it could fit into a Shadow Brute theme, at least in the terms of hurting themselves, but that might be too good with Blood Debt, because then you can all of a sudden like create a ton of might tokens and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I think something along. So I've been trying to wrap my head around this. We know that LSS does top down design, right? It's like, all right, we're going to a gladiator place for heavy hitters.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What do those creatures and characters look like, and how do they work in the game, right? So with that being said, I think we're gonna have to see some kind of, because a lot of the design here is going to be Brute Guardian, right? So you can't go too crazy with the 6 power matters, because Guardian has plenty of that, and all of a sudden maybe Guardian's off to the races more so than Brute, So it's going to be tough to kind of actually design a 6 power matters that really is balanced, but I'm interested to see where they go. I think the go again thing here is what we needed, but it's interesting. Now, I got a question. Do you think there are going to be any reprints of maybe like a Scab Skin Leathers or something like that? We just saw a reprint of Teklo Foundry Heart in Bright Lights.
I could see that, and I would hope there would be some level of reprint just because I do like that the keeping card prices in a range where people can play the game, right? Loved the Crown of Providence reprint. As you mentioned, the Teklo Foundry Heart reprint was very good. Yeah, I would love to see Scabskin's leather. Scabskin leathers have never been an exceptionally expensive legendary to acquire, so I don't know if they would. If they expected Brute to do well, I would love it if they reprinted those.
Mm-hmm.
They recently reprinted Tunic, which is like a pretty core part of Rhinar as well at the moment. Yeah, I'm not sure. I would expect to see more like Guardian and Warrior reprints, honestly, than I would see for Brutes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe the only one I could think of, at least for the purpose of limited, would be Wrecker Romp. Just the blue.
Yeah.
Now, here's the real question: are we getting blue 6s?
No.
No,
No, we're not. We would be we would literally be broken.
we
would
want to be broken.
No, we don't. We want to be. Well, okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I don't speak for all Brutes, but I would secretly, I do wish for all Brutes to get like top 2 and then not get LL points because I want to play this hero for like another 5 years.
Like, you might get that wish, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get any blue 6s either. Well, I'm sure we'll get. The best way for them to do it is to do hero specializations, right? I think, like we saw with Leviag, it's Soul Harvest, and it sure it's a legendary that you can only play one of it, but at least it helps a little bit. Unfortunately, Rhinar does not have that, right? Just Wrecker Romp.
The way I think I phrased it was, I obviously would love a blue 6, right? Hopes and dreams would be all complete if we ever got a blue 6. But I was like, I would still play one if it was the Fabled and it lost me life when I played it. Like that's how good one additional blue 6 would be.
That might be the Fabled. You might have called it right now for heavy hitters. It's a blue 6, and it loses you a life every time you pitch it.
When you pitch it or discard it, you lose life or something. It has the Beast Within text on it. I don't know.
Yeah, but you don't get to draw. You just lose the life.
You just lose.
Now, is there anything else? We've been talking a lot about Brute, Warrior, and Guardian. Sure, Guardian has had plenty of support, right? And I would say that we're hoping that Guardian doesn't fall into that same kind of box where it's just blocking. Right, and control. We want to see some kind of aggro Guardian. I would assume that we'll get that, and then Warriors getting attacks, like generic Warrior, not like Light Warrior. Obviously had a lot of attacks, but Warriors getting attacks now. Yeah. What's your take on that? Are you worried? Are you worried about Warriors?
Am I worried? No. You don't understand. Rhinar could be where Arachne is in the meta right now, and I would still be playing him. Like there is, if Rhinar has one fan, I am that fan. You know what I mean? But no, I'm not worried. I'm very excited for these classes because I feel like Warrior has actually been underappreciated for quite a while. And I love Dory. Dorinthia is such a fun deck to play against. I feel like she's so cool, and she as the opponent of a Dory, I feel like she rewards game knowledge quite a bit. So I love that aspect of her, and I'm really excited to see what Kasai can do. Since she seems to have a really cool ability, her art is beautiful. I'm not worried per se. I don't think any of these. I think the Flesh and Blood community is very resistant to change. So I don't think we'll see these heroes break out for a couple months yet, after some people complain about, new heroes are still bad or something.
I don't know. Kasai the potential of Kasai depends on how often you can make gold tokens, I guess. But, we will see when all of that kind of comes to fruition. Now, finally, we have some listener questions, Dex.
Listener question.
We're going to say our goodbyes. We have, it surprises me every day that people listen to the show and that they send in questions. And I love all of them. And all of these are coming from the Buds Discord, which anybody can join. It's in the links below. Please check it out. It's great time. First question comes from William Knuckles from the Table Pit, who asks, we all know that Dex is Rhinar, but who is KO?
That's an excellent question.
Do you know any KOs?
So I know. I wish he asked about Numbskull because I know there was a cosplayer at Nationals who I've yet to meet who cosplayed Numbskull and it was incredible. I think there was actually a KO at Barcelona that I didn't catch the name of. I wasn't following closely enough. But to answer William's question, there was a KO at Worlds, and that man is KO. I've decided for you.
Shout out to the KO at Worlds. We love you. Also,
Apparently, he stayed in character the whole time, the entire time, and I was like, mad props. Props to him.
That's awesome. You should he has to roll a dice like every time like somebody asks him a question, and if you hit, he can answer. If he doesn't hit, you can only give half the information that has been asked of him. And William also adds, I had been complaining to Kevin Smurf Murphy that Combo Control Rhinar was the best deck in this meta, and seeing you play it on stream filled me with joy. Just wanted to, throw that out there for you, Dex.
Well, that's very kind of him to say. But please keep that under wraps. We don't want other people seeing that Rhinar is the best deck in the meta. Let's not talk about that too loudly.
No, we'll edit that out. No,
no, but I do personally agree. I personally feel like I do feel like that Rhinar is one of the best decks in the format. There's like literally nothing that I will sit down across from and be like, oh gosh, I feel like I'm gonna lose this game. Nothing.
Yeah. Now on the flip side of this, Sigma asked, when will you drop those D-reacts to start playing like a real cheetah smasher?
Sigma, when those cards start blocking, I will play them so fast. Until then, I've tested. I can't play both of them, like Wild Ride and Pulping. Oh my gosh, I've tested Pulping before, and it's already it's discarded my Blood Rushes. It's killed me when I needed to block. I don't know. It's such a tough card to play with. I'll give it more testing, Sigma. I promise.
You got the Dex promise there, Sigma. Gary,
I'll play them when I can guarantee sync blows are in my hand or arsenal, so that I can get them out of there when I need to block.
yeah. Maybe there's going to be a way for people to filter them out at some point in heavy hitters. When that happens, yes. Dex is cheetah smashing all night long. Gary, aka Mr. Viz, of course, says gotta hit Dex with the Shady Maple question. Gary is originally from Central PA, loves Shady Maple whenever he goes out and visits. So he wants to ask, best dessert or best time to go, breakfast, lunch, or dinner? Okay.
So caveat for me, I've only been to Shady Maple twice, and I feel like I died both times afterwards because the food was so rich and decadent. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know people made food like this. I'd have to say, to answer his question, though, I would have to say breakfast. I'm not a huge dessert person, but if there was a dessert, it would be apple pie for me. But I'm a huge breakfast person. Love hash browns, tater tots, any potato product, really. Shove it in my throat. Love it.
Yes. Love potatoes as well. And for those of you who don't know, Shady Maple is a smorgasbord, is what they call it.
A smorgasbord, that's a good word.
Yeah, out in central Pennsylvania where it's just, hey, it's food and there's a lot of it.
It's a Pennsylvania Dutch buffet.
Yes.
It really does feel like that.
Mm-hmm. And then finally from Greg, a.k.a. Darth Prentice, asks, with heavy hitters around the corner, what current brute card? I was guessing he didn't put current. I put current in there. What current brute card is most likely to get people whining and calling for bans on Twitter? What was that? Blood Rush Bellow?
It's Blood Rush Bellow. I have some friends at the local armory who are already fake complaining at me about Blood Rush Bellow being too strong of a card. And obviously they're not serious, but I could see if Brute becomes top tier, it's Blood Rush Bellow is the card.
Yeah, Blood Rush Bellow is an interesting case here. I think people are calling for the ban of that card every once in a while, right? Usually when they come home from Armory and lost to it, and it's interesting, right? The one thing we do know about heavy hitters is there's going to be a lot of weapons, right? and a lot of weapons to choose from, or hopefully a lot of weapons to choose from. And there's one weapon that I think is the only weapon, in my opinion, that really makes Blood Rush Bellow unfair in a way, and that's the Mandible Claws. So I don't know if Blood Rush Bellow gets a lot of benefit from heavy hitters. I mean, obviously more brute cards that will get pumped.
Yeah,
There's
more
that.
go again. You could go if we have like runner, right? You could go
Mhm.
like Blood Rush Bellow, Madcap Charger, runner, club. That could be pretty interesting.
Yes, that could be interesting. But you have to give Runner go again, right?
No, that's true. That's true. So you'd already have to
Yes.
have an agility token. Yeah. All right.
So it could be, I mean, like, obviously someone's going to figure it out, right? And all of a sudden people are going to be getting dealt 35 damage in a turn with no hand, and everybody's gonna be like, blah, 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 blah. You know, I think, you know, my take here is, I think that we're gonna see a call for Berserk to be banned, because I think as we get more brute cards, Berserk is gonna get figured out. I've seen the potential with that card. It's crazy.
There's one of my locals, and I think you know him too. William Berger.
And I will.
He took a Berserk list to Battlehard in Pittsburgh, and he didn't get as much attention, but he placed 14th, which is very good, and he was able to Berserk like I think 2 people out of the game on like very early into the game, so I could see that being the case.
It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. It always reminds me of the story when Berserk first came out. I took Rhinar to Battlehard in Philadelphia, city of brotherly love that took place in Valley Forge, or Valley Forge Casino, and I knew this deck could do like 30 damage like in a turn, and I knew the lines to it, and I was setting up right. I had a full hand, a Berserk in my arsenal, Tunic at 3. And
Yep.
Gary actually came over with another bud and was like, "Oh, look at this! He's about to pop off." And I play Berserk, or do the Tunic, play Berserk, play Sand Sketch Plan, go get Beast Within, miss the Beast Within off the discard. That's all right. Reveal the top, non-6. Like, okay, well, all right, whatever. You know, yes. All right, I still have another shot here. I still have 2 action points. I can make something out of this. I'm playing Ravenous Meat-Axe. I attack with the Ravenous Meat-Axe. Draw,
God.
discard a non-6. I have 2 Beast Withins in hand. I can't even play one with the other. So the hand that could have been. The hand that could have been. That's what I'll call it. That'll be my book.
The hand that got away.
Yeah, when I finally quit Flesh and Blood, that's going to be my memoir. The hand that could have been. It could have been like 30 damage. Ended up only presenting 3 because the Ravenous Meat-Axe didn't even get the +2. So I took a lot of damage to be able to do that, and I'm very proud of it. So as we get more cards to support Berserk, I think we'll avoid those hands. There's still a little bit of variance, but what can you do? But yeah, hey, maybe we'll see you on Berserk sometime, Dex.
I have been toying with I actually toyed with Art of Wars, famously a card that does not block anything. But I was debating. I was playing 3 Art of Wars at one time, like in June, just to test them out, and I was like, wow, not for me. But I did test. I played Berserk in Blitz with Rhinar, and the OTK Meat-Axe is very fun. I don't think it's my style of play, but I've been debating trying out, since I'm not going to a competitive event until like January. I was debating trying out like if I cut down on the Berserks, right? So instead of 3 Berserks, maybe 2 or 1, and see if I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Hey, listen, I love Ravenous Meat-Axe, so I like to anything that makes it playable. I'm on board. But now, thank you first of all, Dex. This has been a lot of fun. Really happy that you came on. Obviously, great bud. Gonna miss you in Columbus last weekend, but I know there's some buds and at PAX Unplugged. So hopefully you run into them. So can you please, my friend, plug everything that you need to plug?
I would love to plug everything I need to plug. So you can find me on Twitter and YouTube mostly at Rhinarcerous. So that's like rhinoceros, except for just replace the first half of the word with Rhinar. I do have an Instagram by that handle as well, though I'm not particularly active on it. I hope to do a little bit more of that going forward. But next big thing coming for me is I have my second YouTube video coming out on Monday of the last week. So if you haven't already watched it, please go check it out. Your support would be incredible. And as I said before, I do love the attention.
What's the new video about?
It is the concept of the beatdown. There was an article in 1999 published by Mike Flores talking about a concept called the beatdown and assigning your role within a game. So it was like if you were both playing burn decks or something, like were you supposed to kill their creature or were you supposed to throw the damage at their face? Like which option was correct? And misassigning or choosing the role wrong would mean that you lost the game. So we're taking that principle and we're assigning it to Flesh and Blood and seeing how, like, should you be blocking or should you be attacking, right? So
I am very excited to watch that, and that's coming out last Monday.
Yeah, it's coming out last Monday.
All right, I can't wait to go back in time and watch it.
Perfect.
You can all continue to find me on Twitter at freshbudspod. Discord, the Buds Discord, I'm Tommy Fresh in there. YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe. The Patreon's still on pause until probably the new year, maybe a little bit later. I'm going to reevaluate that. And yeah, please be good to one another. Now, Dex, I like to talk about food at the end of every show. We talked a little bit about Shady Maple, but I want to know about some food that you want to talk about, something that maybe you're particularly enjoying or something that maybe you want to have again.
Well, recently Thanksgiving just happened, so went back for that, and the Thanksgiving meal was great. We usually have it at my auntie's house, and she does a stellar job. But I think my favorite is like I went to visit my parents and they made like this huge pot of pho, which is like a Vietnamese street food, beef broth soup with rice noodles, and it's just incredible. Love it. I would have it every day if I could, and that's it. That's the end of the sentence.
Well, pho is delicious, and I would like some more pho in my life as well. And soup in general. I think soup is
So good.
we're in soup season right now, folks. This is
True.
getting chilly. So
Give me one moment before you end. I am about to attack all white people, so if we need to cut this out, feel free.
attack them. I am one of
White
them.
people,
I think.
y'all need to get in on the soup plan. And when I go to your house and I tell you I'm making soup, I'm gonna need you to have like large bowls. I don't know what it is, but like I go to people's houses and they're like, here's this like tiny saucer. I'm like, that's not gonna cut it. Like, I can't do anything with that. Anyway, that's my.
Hey, listen. You're preaching to the choir, and it's something that I'm gonna go talk to my fiance about as soon as we end this podcast. What's up with our bowls? We need better bowls right now.
Exactly.
But no, I mean, I want like a big thing.
Get some heft. It's got to be like, if it's not like the size of your head or larger, like what am I gonna do with that?
Exactly. Well, you heard it here first, folks. You know, we gotta get our act together. We gotta get our shit together right now and get some better bowls, folks. But unfortunately, all that bowl talk has kind of took up the time for Charmer, so maybe we'll get to him next week. But we will have a great December, folks, and we're excited about heavy hitters. Thank you, Dex, and thank you, everyone. Please stay